Hey, thanks for checking out another episode of the Celebrity Jobber Podcast. I'm Jeff Zito, currently number 3 on the Apple Podcast Music Interviews chart. So thank you so much for listening. We're streaming everywhere, whether it's Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you listen to podcasts. And please subscribe. Hit that subscribe button. Would love a 5-star rating. And if you could, leave a review. You can go back in time, check out all of our past guests and episodes simply by going to celebrityjobber.com. You know, try to figure out who these people were a little bit before fame, what they did for a living, if they were always doing what they were famous for, or maybe they were in a completely different field altogether. We'll find out what their big break was, the moment that changed everything for them in their career. And you know, everybody's had a first job, so we like to find out what that was. Because when thinking about it, you would think that there's one particular first job in mind, but there's not. It's like a few different jobs. Like if you asked me what my very first job was, I'd say newspaper route. But then do you really consider that a job? I mean, it was, because I was making a few bucks every week. It was cash, no paycheck. But as I got a little older, I got into high school, was 15 or 16 years old. I got a job at a dinner theater. And then after that, I worked in the cart barn of a exclusive golf course, cleaning clubs for members. So, you know, when you ask somebody what their very first job was, generally they give you a list of a few different ones like I just gave you right there. But we're not talking about me today, thank God. My life's definitely not as interesting, not to mention I'm not a celebrity or famous. But Corbin Bernsen is. You know him from the soap opera Ryan's Hope or L.A. Law. Of course, he played the role of Roger Dorn in the movie Major League. And the few sequels the Major League franchise had after that with Charlie Sheen and Tom Berenger. I would love to see those guys get back together again. So a few things I didn't know about Corbin Bernsen before I started talking to him. He's in a new movie, which is currently in theaters and I believe being released digitally today. It's called The Yeti. And we'll talk a little bit about his family, what they did for a living, Corbin's big break, his first job, all that stuff. He played the role of Roger Dorn in the movie Major League. His name is Corbin Bernsen. He's my guest this week on Celebrity Jobber.
The Celebrity Jobber Podcast with Jeff Zito. If you like what you hear, please subscribe, give a 5-star rating, and leave a review. Check out all our past episodes on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you pod. What if these celebrities weren't famous? What would they have become? What was their first job? We're about to find out.
Jeff.
Good morning, Corbin. How are you?
Are you related to Andy Zito?
I don't think so, but the older I get, the more Zitos kind of seem to be popping up here. The horse trainer, not related to. The pitcher from the A's, not related to. So, but maybe somewhere down the line, right? Here's a funny thing, Corbin. I had no idea. I've known you forever, not personally, but Roger Dorn, Ryan's Hope, L.A. Law. Never knew your mom was Kay Chancellor. I watched The Young and the Restless from the time I was a little kid with my mom, so I had no idea that was your mom.
Yeah, she was. God bless her. I miss her. Yeah, she was a wonderful, wonderful lady. There's it's funny as you get older, and I'm 71 now. There are just times in your life you just want your mother around. You want a question or two. You just want to share something. I want to share the ups, share the downs, share the fears. And you lose that. And you know, I've been married to a wonderful woman, Amanda Pays, for 37 years. It's not the same though. It's just not. Yeah. Even though she's a wonderful mother to our kids. Just times I just want to, especially this wacky world of acting, this profession I've chosen. You know, you just want to, she's the one who urged me to train myself or get trained if I want to be an actor. Don't just do it for the money and the girls and the cars and the flash and all that bling. Do it because train and you'll learn to really love what you do. You love the craft. And there's so many things I like that I do now that she'll never get to know or see, or maybe, I don't know, somewhere.
Any advice you can give people who are at that stage in life that are thinking about their parents every day and losing them because they're getting up. Me, I've got my dad's 90. Any
Wow.
advice that you can give to people who are in that stage?
Well, there's an obvious one, and I think a lot of people have this regret. There were times before it all, and it went rather quickly when it went, so you kind of can't make up for it. But you just did I call enough? Did I check in enough? Did I, you know, even with my own kids, it's like, and they're pretty good about checking in, but I know now how much I love it when they call, hey, Dad, just want to say hi. I don't need
Right.
money. I don't need advice. I don't need to even share anything. Just want to say hi and hear your voice.
Yeah.
And, there's sometimes I think, gosh, did I do that at the end? Be there because you can't imagine what this stage of life is like when you're younger. You can't, when you're, when your days become less than more. And, it's not necessarily fear. It's the winding down. And kids don't, you just don't get that. You can't possibly understand it. And it is a time where you want to sort of connect with family. And so I just say, be there for them. Doesn't mean you have to go every day. I've heard people go see their mother or call every day. Just stay in touch and
Yeah.
do it with just checking in on how you doing.
Right.
Anything
Right on.
you want to share with me?
Right on. Yeah. It's life and it sucks. All the way back. I mean, obviously, now that I know that your mother was a very famous actress, this has been the norm for you. You started when you were just a kid. You don't know anything else other
Right.
than this, do you, Corbin? Have you ever had a job outside of show business?
Celebrity Jobber. The Celebrity Jobber Podcast with Jeff Zito.
Corbin, have you ever had a job outside of show business?
Oh yeah. I mean, I used to frame houses. I was a
Oh,
carpenter. That's how I put myself through college. Um, I framed how I do know construction very well. My wife and I flip homes, build homes. We're very much into house building. I have other interests, obviously, but I did work as a carpenter. I still do. I mean, I've got, my wife said the other day, because I have a garage full of tools, and I've even updated. I've gone from, corded tools to wireless to, and, uh, or battery operated. And, she said, when are you going to get rid of tools? And I go, no, I'm a carpenter. I mean, you take them and do something when I'm gone, but my tools stay with me.
uh, so what was your very first job? You remember? I think it was on stage. Was it on stage or? But your very first paying job in your whole life was when you were very young, right?
Well, now interesting. Uh, one of my first
I want to
jobs.
know your first job. Yes.
When I was a kid, I got this little electric cart my mother bought me, a little thing you had to charge it, then you could drive like 20 minutes on it. It was a little electric car, a plug-in little. Other kids had go-karts, gas go-karts, I guess. I had this little kind of electric car. I lived about a half a mile from a bus stop where people changed buses. It was a transfer bus stop. If you had to get off one to go to the next place or all the other places. And I decided in the days of when we did lemonade stands as kids that, like, no, I'm going to kit up my little electric car. I'm going to take refreshments to this bus stop. And I used to park myself there. I'd make like $100 a day.
You're kidding me.
I made like 100, but that's 1965 or six.
Wow.
I'd make sometimes up to $100 a day by just taking Coca-Cola drinks, and charging. I'd get them for whatever it was, then 30 cents or something. Probably charged a buck. And my mother would bring refills to the place. So much so the police actually kind of stopped me. And I was just doing too much business. And they were saying, you got to get a business license. And we're not sure you should even be doing this. You're like 11, you know?
Wow.
So I was very entrepreneurial in those days. That was my very first job. Then my first acting gig. was I mean, even though it says on IMDb and all that, that I was in Clam Bake with Elvis. I was a baby. I think I was visiting the set or something. I'm not.
Right. Okay. Okay.
How that happened. Uh, but one of my first jobs was my first job really acting that didn't involve my parents because they were in the business or people they knew is I did an episode of Police Story, a
Okay.
series that was on, and then I did a Police Woman, which was kind of part of the same family. Um, those are
That
my
was it.
first professional gigs, yeah.
Wow. Tell me, was there a moment that really changed everything for you? Was it a gradual kind of grind until, you got
LA
made it to
Law,
LA
yeah,
Law?
LA
Yeah.
Law. That was, overnight. That was
Overnight.
overnight. Yeah. I mean, practically, considering we I was nothing, I hadn't shot anything. I We shot the first day, the second day, they said, I remember the director, Greg Hoblet, wonderful director, came up and just said, keep doing what you're doing. It's great. And the next thing I know, I'm nominated for an Emmy. And I'm like, really? Me? My squeaky little voice isn't even that good. And Stephen Bochco said, you're going to get nominated. You'll see. Um, and from there, everything kind of just popped. It's a funny business. When you're hot and the streak is good, it just begets other stuff. And when your streak ends, you got to go back and grind it back out. And
Right.
and by the way, for everybody, save for maybe Tom Cruise, I don't know. Kevin Costner was a massive actor, and then he goes and then he's on TV, and then he's trying something else in a film that doesn't quite work, and then there's for everybody there's ups and downs, literally. Um, but it's working through those down periods, just staying in the game. I mean, if you're a sports person, and you're in a slump, a lot of people just keep you in the game. They won't take you out. The only way to get out of a slump is stay in the game and get that next hit.
Right. And Corbin, I mean, we're talking LA Laws in the 80s. So any
Yeah.
time between college and LA Law, you're thinking to yourself, man, I don't know. I don't, maybe I should try something else. Any thoughts
No, well,
between, no?
I didn't, when my parents were both in the business. My father was an agent, became a producer, not very successful, good man, taught me a lot of things. My mother was a soap opera actress, had ideas of a bigger career, but sort of needed to support the family and work. And she did a soap for almost 40 years, right up to a couple weeks before she passed. And there was a time I went like, I don't want anything, we'd have cars and nice fancy cars and they'd be repossessed the next week. And
Mm,
then, we had money, we'd take a nice fancy trip. Then it was like, you know, go get a job doing something because we can't pay for stuff. And I thought, I don't want anything to do with that. So that period you're talking about, I didn't want anything to do with it. I didn't want to be in the business. I had friends whose parents were doctors and lawyers. And I I didn't want anything to do until I actually did a little part, and then I kind of got a piece of it. And my mother said, "Go train." I went to UCLA. I learned the craft, appreciated it. And at that point, it didn't really matter the ups and I mean, I still get periods of like, I'm 71 now. It's like, what's my next step? Uh, although it seems to be revealing itself day by day. But it doesn't matter because I so love what I do. If I'm acting in a community theater or a big film or an independent film like The Yeti, I'm happy. I'm content.
The Celebrity Jobber Podcast with Jeff Zito. The Celebrity Jobber Podcast with Jeff Zito.
And Corbin, tell me about the Yeti because this is your latest step. And this thing, I just saw the trailer, which reminded me of like the old werewolf. Is the Yeti Bigfoot? Because there's a
Oh,
big
Yeti, Bigfoot,
resurgence.
it's a that mythical creature. Um, yeah, I mean it's been called Bigfoot, the Yeti, the abominable snowman, all that. Uh, that doesn't matter as much as there is a creature out there that summons our fears, and at the same time, the thing I love about this film is that it, in a way that Rod Serling did with Twilight Zone, it's not so much about seeing the monster, being scared, the monster popping out of the dark. It is about the psychological terror and horror that the people go through, knowing that something's out there, something's lurking out there, and is there, or they happen to be in its path because of their own, greed and their own screwing around with nature. And that to me is the bigger picture here. And that's why it's not a horror film in that it's, three teenage girls go into the woods and get slashed up. It's not that kind of a horror film. More of a psychological thriller horror about man and who we are and the horror that we create in our own lives, which I think we can look all around and see it happening as we speak
Yeah.
today. Sometimes, you look at those pictures of Artemis and you see it and go like, what are we doing? That little down there. I'm looking over at the news there and rockets are blowing up all this stuff. I'm thinking like,
What are we doing?
what are we doing? What are we doing? It's funny. There hasn't been that much of a connection between these two events, but like, or nobody on or does anybody in any of these countries go, wait a minute, ridiculous, you know? But that's what we do. That's man. That's
Right.
man. That's
Right.
us. We are the horror.
Is this a kind of genre that you appreciate, Corbin?
I do.
You
I really do because look, I'll go watch a good, not slasher so much, but horror picture, stuff popping out of the dark. But I always am more drawn when it's has at least some element of human nature that we're exploring. Yeah, I mean, even if you want to go to the classic slashery kind of movies, it's always the virgin, the girl that doesn't get killed, the Nev Campbell. And even in that, when it's done properly, it does say something about the person that holds a moral compass that doesn't get taken out. It's always the bad ones, the bad kids. Um, that's sort of a light version of it, but the darker stuff, our fears and the things we uncover for greed, and the nature that we mess with is far more interesting to me. Yeah, I love anything that has that stuff. Like I said, I was a huge Rod Serling fan.
and the Yeti. Correct me if I'm wrong. Was in theaters starting on the 4th, and now a digital release coming on April 10th. Is that correct?
And if you're so lucky tonight, if you're going to head to a AMC, check AMC theaters, it is playing on a big screen. And believe me, it looks wonderful on a big screen.
I bet.
It's
I
great.
bet. It reminds me of the old school Wolfman, a horror kind of, and it's something I haven't seen lately. And Bigfoot Yeti still gets a lot of attention from a lot of people. They still think it's out. You believe in it? You think it's real?
Sure. It's funny. I was looking at with all this stuff going on. I was looking again at that whole thing comes up. I don't know all these feeds come in about like, did we really land on the moon?
Right.
Who shot JFK? There are these unsolved mysteries. I like to think, sure, why
Right.
not? I don't need to say it did or it didn't or it exists or it doesn't. The older I get, I'm very happy to live in the unknown.
Right. Sure. And I would be remiss if I didn't ask you, Major League.
The Celebrity Jobber Podcast with Jeff Zito. Celebrity Jobber.
And I would be remiss if I didn't ask you, Major League.
Right.
Just that's one of mine. Okay. I'm a big sports fan. Brother-in-law played pro baseball, my son, college baseball. And I know Roger Dorn made a return as the manager.
Right.
Is there any talks, any way you could shut a guy like me up the next stage, the next level? Is there ever talks between some of the guys about maybe
Maybe.
trying it
But
again?
what would that mean? I mean, what would it mean? We're could be players. All of us would have to be retired. I mean,
Look at Stallone. He's figured it out.
But there's a way to figure it out. I have an idea. There is a thing that I want to do with Tom and Charlie. It's not part of the franchise, but makes you think about it a bit. It's a baseball zombie movie.
Okay.
And
That's not what I was thinking, but
no, of course it's not. That's good because I like to let people. I'm with Rod Sterling out there. I have some ideas. I have some designs. I'm 71. There's like I've narrowed down people have bucket lists where they want to go. I have bucket lists of what I still want to make, and I think there's a value to Tom, Charlie, and I get back together for something.
okay.
In the genre, great, but will it be major league? That's out of our control. So, but the three of us certainly, given each of our kind of character qualities, if you will, that were in major league, that could be transferred to another film.
You said bucket list. Can you give me one? Is there one thing that you're like, I just got to do this? I got to work with this guy. I got to make this movie. What is that bucket list thing?
I've got several projects. One is a play called Public Executions, about the first live televised public executions for
Wow.
profit. My baseball movie, zombie baseball movie, is one. And I'm actually working on a series that I actually funded, a pilot called Woodstockers, about two guys who went to Woodstock and never left. Sort of a dark comedy drama. And you'll be hopefully hearing more about that in the next year.
I really thought you were kidding about the zombie baseball movie, but you're not. You're dead serious.
You're dead.
Pardon the pun. The Yeti. It's going to be in theater. It's in theaters now, being released digitally on April 10th. And it definitely looks like something that I haven't seen in a long time. Any kind of these horror genre type of films. Bigfoot is hot right now. So the Yeti. Corbin Bernsen, it's been an absolute pleasure getting to know you a little bit, and thanks so much for taking the time. I do appreciate it.
We'll leave you with this. The Yeti is real.
Great. And I'll leave you with this. Don't give me any of that Olay bullshit, Dorn.
Just a little outside.
I wish I thought about it a little more before I threw the idea about, Tom Berenger, Charlie Sheen, and Corbin getting into another major league type of thing, and kind of put me on the spot. But if I would have just thought about it a little while longer, maybe you could have like Tom Berenger. He was the catcher in Major League. Maybe he's the manager, and Charlie Sheen, Wild Thing, Ricky Vaughn, he's the pitching coach. And then maybe Roger Dorn, Corbin Bernsen, loses all his money in a bad stock deal or something, and he's a scout. I have the whole movie right now. I should have friggin' thought about it a little bit before I pitched the idea. But there's a real idea from Corbin Bernsen with those guys from Major League, and it's some kind of zombie baseball movie. I thought he was just joking around, but he's not. He actually has this idea that he wants to do with Tom Berenger and Charlie Sheen. So I had no idea that Corbin Bernsen's mother played the role of Kay Chancellor in the soap opera The Young and the Restless. That's been something I've watched since I was a little kid. So Corbin Bernsen's mom, her name is Jean Cooper. So she was an actress in a soap opera, and his father, I believe, produced soap operas and was also an agent. But Corbin said something very interesting in there, that they weren't very successful. Like at times they would go on fancy trips or have fancy cars, and then, a week or two later, the car would be repoed, or they'd get back from their nice trip and then they were broke. It didn't seem like he had a real privileged upbringing, even though his mom was kind of a famous soap opera actress. I'm not too familiar with the world of acting, but I assume that actors and actresses on soap operas generally don't get paid the same as being on a regular TV series that's famous or movies. So it seemed like he, I don't want to say struggled growing up, but definitely not born with a silver spoon in his mouth. He went to UCLA, so, showbiz was in his family. He wanted to do that from an early age. That was it. That's what Corbin wanted to do. But before he was famous and in movies, he mentioned that he framed houses. I thought that was very interesting. He was a carpenter and a framer. And so he was big time in construction and still has some ties to that this day. Him and his wife mentioned flipping houses and stuff like that. And he also mentioned his first job being a paper route. And then also, like a lot of people, they talk about lemonade stands. Corbin had some kind of little electric cart when he was younger, and he would, fill it up with, a cooler full of sodas and go to some bus stop, which was like in the city, a transfer kind of bus stop, constantly people getting on and off the bus. And he would sell like sodas to these people. And he's talking about 1965 and how sometimes he would make up to like $100 a day, which I thought was pretty amazing. So the cops finally started busting his balls about getting a business license. So they ended up shutting him down. He talked about his big break actually being LA Law. He kind of went from virtually unknown to a big star overnight. Changed his life. New movie being released digitally. It's called The Yeti. And if you haven't seen the trailer yet, just kind of looks like an old school werewolf movie. And being released digitally today on Amazon Prime. The Yeti looks like a lot of fun if you're into the horror genre. Well, thank you so much for checking out another episode of the Celebrity Jobber Podcast. Again, number 3 this week on Apple Podcasts Music Interviews chart. Thank you so much. Don't forget, we're streaming everywhere, so please hit that subscribe button, whether it's on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeart, wherever you listen to podcasts. Subscribe. Would love that 5-star rating, and if you could, please leave a review. CelebrityJobber.com if you want to go back, check out some of the past guests and episodes. A lot of A-listers, man, and almost 190 episodes into this. So if you're just starting to listen today, you can go back and check out tons and tons of celebs from the past almost 4 years. And also follow us on youtube.com/@CelebrityJobber, Instagram, celebrity_jobber_podcast, and @CelebrityJobber on Substack. Some bonus content, some video going to be available on Substack in the very near future, so you're going to want to subscribe to Substack. Who knows what would have happened to these celebrities if fame wasn't an option? Their big break never happened. Who knows? Maybe Corbin Bernsen would be at a construction site putting a roof on your house. You never know. So thanks again for checking out another episode of the Celebrity Jobber Podcast. And until next week, we'll see you then. I'm Jeff Zito.